We'll move on to conduct of business.
Item 6A, receive first quarter financial update report for fiscal year 2018-19 as of September 30th, 2018, and adopt a resolution approving the carryover of fiscal year 2017-18 purchase order encumbrances.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay. My name is Keith DeMartini. I'm the Finance Director for the City. It is my pleasure to present the first quarter financial projection for the current fiscal year 18-19. The objective of this item before you tonight is twofold. Number one, please receive the quarter one report as of the end of September 30th of 2018. And then number two, we're requesting you to adopt a resolution amending the fiscal year 18-19 operating and capital improvement budget by approving of the carryover fiscal year 17-18 purchase order encumbrances or commitments that we've already made to our vendors on specific projects. So the agenda for this evening is for me to provide you with an overview of various tables and charts of our quarter one financial projections so far, details regarding our purchase order encumbrances requesting to be carried forward. I want to talk a little bit about some recent process improvements that staff have made, just a very high-level overview of what the proposed budget schedule will look like going forward into the next budget cycle, and then again my request to City Council this evening. So before I jump into some of the financial tables, I just want to give an overview of what our fiscal operating year looks like. Our fiscal year begins on July 1st of 2018 and will end on June 30th of 2019. We will do formal financial summary tables and projections at the end of each fiscal quarter. So again, this quarter's financial projection is data and information as of the end of September of 2018. I'll come back to you, plan to come back to you back in January to provide you with an update as of the end of Q2. And I'll plan to come back to you in April to provide you an update at the end of Q3. For the end of Q4, quarter four, there's a bit more work to close out the fiscal year. And so the plan will be to, when we prepare our annual financial reports, our CAFR, that will come before Council, plan to come in January as well. So this slide shows a very high-level overview of our fiscal year 18-19 revenue and expenditure budget in the general fund only. Council adopted this budget, and it does require the use of just under $1.7 million of fund balance to fund budgeted expenses above and beyond the projected revenues in the current fiscal year. This is a structural deficit, as we are aware, and staff will be analyzing this in the coming months as we prepare for the upcoming budget cycle. The revenue pie chart on the left on this slide shows the proportional share of the major revenue sources in our general fund, with property tax and sales tax revenues being the most significant sources for the city's operations. The pie chart on the right shows the expenditures of our major city functions that the general fund goes to fund. Just a reminder that these charts only represent the general fund. The city receives revenue and funds critical operations in various enterprises and special revenue funds as well that aren't shown on these pie charts. I'd like to provide an overview of the revenue sources through the first quarter of the current fiscal year compared to the adopted budget and compared to quarter one of last fiscal year. High-level summary, revenues through Q1 are at approximately 17% of the total budget, which is very similar to where we were last fiscal year at the same point in time. Property tax is typically paid by property owners in 2 installments, in December and in April. Thus, the city will recognize a majority of property tax revenues in those months. For sales tax, revenues are just a little bit behind the same period last year, resulting from timing differences from payments primarily attributable to the delay in tax filing processing from a new system that was implemented by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. This is a phenomenon that's being felt cities across the state. Our sales tax advisor currently projects that we will likely be on budget by the end of the fiscal year, so this really is just timing differences. For motor vehicle license fees, revenues received at the same time that we receive property taxes. For regulatory card room taxes, the city does send out quarterly bills. The Q2 bill was sent out earlier than expected, and so the revenue was received in Q1 instead of Q2. This again is resulting in just a timing difference. Revenue is projected to be on budget by the end of the year. And for business taxes, our annual renewal notifications are sent to all licensed businesses and are due to the city in July, which is why the July revenue is typically much higher than you would expect a run rate to be. So moving on to expenditures. This is an overview of our expenditures through Q1 compared to the budget and compared to Q1 of last fiscal year as well. In summary, our expenditures through Q1 are about 30% of the total budget so far, which is slightly higher than last fiscal year at the same point in time. Q1 expenditures are about $14.4 million of the budget. All departments are within an acceptable range at the end of Q1, and expenditures are primarily higher due to staff turnover that we've had and a significant amount of hiring to fill those budgeted positions over the past year. The table in the staff report before you does summarize a number of new staff that have been employed over the past year. About 42 staff represent 16% of the city's workforce. Again, these are all budgeted positions. The first quarter expenditures are typically higher also due to the city choosing to take advantage of the CalPERS prepayment option for both safety and miscellaneous plans for our annual costs for unfunded accrued liabilities for the retirement system. The city chooses to do this rather than pay in monthly installments to minimize the overall cost of the payment. It's better for the city to make a one-time payment than it is to spread it over the year. This payment is just over $5 million annually. So that's why the costs are showing a little bit higher in Q1 proportionally. I would expect that run rate to go down over the next 3 quarters. Moving on to our enterprise funds, water and wastewater revenues for the first quarter came in as expected. They do include 3 months of service charges from the 5-year rate plan that was approved by the City Council back in May of 2017. Cable television enterprise revenues and expenditures came in fairly consistent to last fiscal year at this time as well. And the stormwater fees are collected through the county property tax roll, so we would expect the first payments to be received in December with the other property tax payments. Here's a summary of our revenues and expenditures for the city's 4 internal service funds. These funds operate like a typical business, and they exclusively support the other city departments in the city. Charges for each of these funds are done primarily on a monthly allocation basis based on the budget, and you'll see a difference in our self-insurance expenses in Q1. That was primarily due to a large payment from our liability and property insurance premium that was paid last year in October, which would have been during Q2. So that would have been reflected in Q2 last year. So that's why there's a difference there. Again, just a timing issue. So I know I just had a number of slides up there with a lot of numbers. So just my key takeaways to you is that our general fund, our revenues are coming in as expected. Our expenditures are within normal run rates that I would expect at this time. I don't see any major issues with any of the revenue trends or expenditures to date. There's no indication requiring any budget action at this time. And then for our enterprise and our internal service funds, again, the activity that I see is normal and expected. So moving on to the request to council, we are requesting purchase order carry forward. This table represents the dollar value of the outstanding encumbrances or the commitments to our vendors as of the end of June 30th of 2018, the end of last fiscal year. We are requesting reappropriating these dollars into the current fiscal year budget to ensure that the previously authorized funds are available in the current year to cover expenditures for multi-year projects and our continuing obligations. This is a routine annual request that comes before council and it's required in order for us to wrap up our prior fiscal year closeout and reporting. The Finance Department has confirmed that these are all active purchase orders with department staff for projects that are in progress. I'd like to take this opportunity to also provide an overview of some recent process improvements that staff have been working on over the past 3 months since I started with the city. On the purchasing side, staff have conducted an assessment of various procure-to-pay policies and procedures. We're drafting new purchasing policies, forms, and templates, and a training to roll out to all staff. We've also reviewed credit card practices and adjusted credit limits to ensure that they're an optimal amount for the type and the frequency and the staff that need these credit cards. We've also improved internal controls and procedures regarding the printing of checks. We're preparing to make a push to our vendor community to take advantage of being paid via Automated Clearinghouse, or ACH. The city will achieve cost savings over time with this push by reducing our costs on printing checks. Our vendors will receive their payments quicker, and that they'll have less administrative burden by receiving payments electronically. We're also began submitting and approving wire transfers to our bank online with additional safeguards. Prior to that, we had to send a fax to our bank to do so and would sometimes get less control in order to do that. We've also done an assessment on cash handling, reviewing how city staff handle cash, coins, and checks to align with best practices. We implemented a remote deposit scanner at the front desk in City Hall, which will improve internal controls, and it processes our bank deposits a lot quicker, where we can achieve interest quicker as well. We've also done some back office automation from some of our systems so that they can talk to each other and updating our customer accounts. We've also begun digitizing our business license records, and we're storing them electronically so we can do research quicker and provide better customer service at the front counter. We're exploring how we can answer questions on utility bills and business licenses through using the city's service request app, San Bruno Responds. So this is just a number of things that we've been working on to provide better service to our customers and become more efficient. This table shows in the coming weeks what we'll be doing to plan for the upcoming budget cycle, fiscal year 1920. It'll include reviewing prior budget year processes, potential process improvements, and key deadlines. The table lists the key anticipated dates during the process. During February and March is when staff will plan to work very closely with City Council to discuss priorities and related budget topics. More information will be coming in the coming weeks as we get closer to executing some of this schedule. So in summary, my request to Council is to receive the Quarter 1 report as of the end of September 30th of 2018, and to adopt a resolution amending the current fiscal year operating and capital budget by approving of the carryover from fiscal year 17-18 purchase order encumbrances. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that detailed report and update. Questions from council? Irene?
I have a question, but you've only been here 3 months?
Yes, ma'am.
You've done a remarkable job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor? Laura?
I would concur. I appreciate the report. I appreciate the details in it. And I appreciate the process improvements. I think we can always do that, and we can always look at improving processes. So, and that does save time and money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Michael, Marty? I do want to also echo some of what my colleagues have said. In a short time, I've seen the safeguards, I've seen processes, I've seen protocols, and I see us moving forward as far as just the service level, digitized, ensuring safeguards, and those are things that I think are a fresh set of eyes that have come in and looked at the department, and to see how not only can we continue to do what's right for the city and protect its assets, but also provide a service level and efficiency that saves time and money. So thank you very much, and when you are at the office tomorrow, please thank the Finance Department.
I will. Thank you very much.
And now, of course, there's one thing, that's why you're not going to sit down yet, I
Like I
know.
said, yeah.
You would like to have a resolution, so do we have a motion and a second for that resolution?
I'll move to,
Oh, go ahead.
move to introduce resolution.
Michael, second.
I second.
Melissa?
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Thank you, Keith, very much. Appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next item under conduct of business.